We are starting out our show on this Friday with an important conversation about women in the workforce. They already face many challenges, and unfortunately, the pandemic has intensified those challenges. Here to tell us more and to talk about this important problem and issue happening all across the country, but also specifically here in Utah, is Emily Tabak and Brit Merrill from Holland Hart. Emily and Brit, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Emily, let's start with you. Tell me more about how women specifically have been impacted during this pandemic in the workforce.
So it's becoming a pretty well-known statistic at this point that more women than men have left the workforce during the pandemic. And it seems that that same pattern is occurring in Utah as well. And so I think women in the workforce have had to deal with a number of different issues during the pandemic, alongside all of the health considerations. That they've also been worrying about what career progression is going to occur. And so are they going to lose their jobs? Are they going to be able to make it to the next rung on the ladder? In addition to facing mental health issues and burnout while they're trying to homeschool children and also balance their marriages and also balance their workload. So it's been a pretty difficult time, I think, for women in the workforce.
And Britt, what are some more specific challenges that women faced before the pandemic in the workforce that have now intensified later? Emily mentioned things like childcare and struggles with having to make that work-life balance. What else are women facing right now?
Yeah, so, women tend to take on more childcare responsibilities than men. I mean, that's an oversimplification, and it's certainly not true for everyone. And so when schools closed down, when daycares closed down, that burden fell disproportionately on women to shoulder that responsibility. Women also, have more caregiving responsibilities when it comes to older parents. And so it's sort of what was already known before the pandemic was just a little bit exacerbated by the pandemic. And now we're seeing workplaces start to recognize that. What does it look like, in this home setting when my kids run in on a Zoom call? We get this glimpse into people's personal life, and I think employers are largely kind of responding to that and figuring out what their next steps are.
We've been hearing reports of women leaving the workforce throughout the pandemic all over the country. But Britt, I'm curious, is there a silver lining to this? Is there anything positive coming from it?
Yeah, and that's a great question. There absolutely is. So I think if you had asked companies, in February of 2020, would you consider letting your workforce work remotely? Would you are you doing these flexible workplace policies? A lot of them would say, no, we're not really comfortable with that. We don't know what that would look like. It's not really something we want to do. And then come March 2020, right, workplaces were forced to do this because of the pandemic and quickly realized that, people, we trust our workforce. They can work from home. They can both do their job and take care of their work responsibilities and home responsibilities as well. And so we saw a lot of employers kind of this sort of clicked and they realized we can do this. And now where we are, we're seeing, okay, what's going to stick, for those companies who adapted and went. I think the statistic is that, a quarter of workers are back in the office for office workers. So that means 3/4 are still working remote. Like what is that going to look like in the next few months? Are we going to bring people back? Are we going to allow people to keep working remote, or are we going to have sort of a hybrid? And as a labor and employment attorney who I advise, clients on workplace policies and employee handbooks and litigation, I think we're seeing each of those three buckets. We're seeing people who are planning to bring their workforce back. We're seeing people who are planning to just go completely remote. They'll still have an office space and people can come in when they want to. And then we're seeing sort of a hybrid, you can work from home so many days a week.
You both work in a male-dominated field. Emily, I'm curious, what have you done to help advance your career, and what advice do you have for future generations of women who are hoping to go into the same field or hoping to be in the workforce?
Well, I think that can't emphasize enough the importance of mentoring and the value of mentoring. I have fantastic female mentors at Holland Hart, and I'm able to look to them for strong female leadership at the firm. It's also really important for attorneys or other professionals who are entering the workforce to look and see, who's in the leadership ranks here. Is there someone who I can really look up to and say, this is the type of career and this is the type of life that I want? Do I see a path to advancement? So I think that that's really important. And I'm very lucky to work at Holland Hart. I mean, it's a fabulous firm, and we have incredible policies in place that are designed to help promote women and to help women and parents if you have a situation similar to the pandemic, or if you've got little kids at home, you can take advantage of flex time policies that are pretty incredible. And my understanding is that we've had those in place since the 1980s. And so that's also really important to women who are looking to start their careers, to look for an employer ideally that has those types of policies in place to take advantage of.
Brit, what advice do you have to women in the workforce?
I'll echo what Emily said. I think kind of finding a mentor, finding a sponsor, finding someone who will champion you through your careers is just so critical. And this isn't to say that only women can be that for other women, right? Men undoubtedly are also very important, and it's important for them to mentor women and sponsor women through their career. But like Emily said, it's, when you can see, I have a mentor who she just retired from Holland Hart, and she was practiced law for 40 years, right? I could see how she got there, and she helped guide me through that. Like, okay, this is where you are at in your career. These are the things you should be focusing on, and I recognize these are the challenges you're facing. I was also a mom with young kids at that time, and I face those challenges too. And here's how you can get through them. And so having somebody who can kind of just walk you through that and give you a roadmap so you can see, I can do that because I see that this person has done that as well.
Emily, what can businesses do to help females in the workforce and help this progress that we are hopefully seeing, especially after the consequences of the pandemic with women?
So we're really excited. The firm is co-sponsoring a panel with Utah Business Magazine. And we're going to be talking to some thought leaders and business leaders who are specializing in this area right now and are considering these big questions. So we have a professor who's going to be speaking to some of her research on the impact of COVID on women in the workforce, and who are also doing studies that look at, what are the different policies that companies in Utah are looking at implementing? What have they implemented in the past? And what are they going to be implementing in the future? And so I think to have that perspective, along with business leaders who are going to be speaking to some of those policies. So as Brit mentioned before, a hybrid type model. We have employers who are they have employees who are in labs and they have to do lab work. And what does that look like going forward? Are there ways that we can build flexibility in for working parents going forward? And so I think that the pandemic, as horrible as it has been, that in terms of silver linings, you have to be able to look at the fact that this is an opportunity, and it's an opportunity for Utah and Utah businesses to be able to really reshape the way that being in the workforce is for working parents in particular, who have some additional burdens on them as they try to succeed both in the workplace and at home.
And Brit, we are out of time, but where can we get more information? How can we find out more about everything we've talked about today with females in the workforce, and also more about Holland & Hart?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to Utah Business, you can see the webinar that will take place on March 24th with Dr. Susan Matson, B. Washington, Sarah Starkey, and then Holland & Hart is hollandhart.com. So yeah, check it out, and we hope to see people at that webinar on March 24th.
Well, thank you so much, Brit and Emily, for joining us today from Holland & Hart about this important topic of women in the workforce and how the pandemic has negatively impacted them. So hopeful that we can change this and give support to women who are working right now, and also trying to balance all of the other things that are happening in their lives. We'll be back with more right after this.